Hi guys, it's Matt. I am a compulsive gambler in recovery and I'm your mind and movement mentor here to help. So today I want to talk about brutal honesty. There's an old saying, addiction denied is recovery delayed. And it's not easy to, one, I guess, understand whether or not you are addicted to something. Two, but more importantly, it's probably even harder to admit it. Now, if you look at the literal definition of addiction, there's a few different ones, but generally it's around about a continued behavior irrespective of the inevitability of it leading to harmful or destructive consequences. So even though your future self is really not going to thank you for it, in fact, the opposite, continuing regardless. And I like the word powerless. I think for me, that sums it up. That yes, there's the issue of the consequences that aren't going to be good. And you can almost kick that down the road in your mind. But the compulsion and the impulse to do it is where you just, well, I in particular just felt like I had no conscious control. So I remember when I first went to a Gamblers Anonymous meeting, I got a little orange booklet, which I've still got. And there was 20 questions in the back of it to, I guess, prompt you to think about if you were an addict. And I suppose it's trying to separate people that maybe feel like they've got a bit of a troubled relationship with it to someone that needs to take action on a recovery process straight away. And it would be things like, have you ever borrowed money to gamble? Do you take time off work or sacrifice being present with loved ones? And I remember being an concerningly high number out of 20 for all of them. And I think by the time I'd made a choice to go to that meeting, I knew anyway. But for a time, my mind would almost kind of trick me into, no, like an addict is someone who's outside the coffee shop begging for change, that looks completely disheveled and clearly has got a bad drug problem. And that, to me, I think in hindsight is kind of a bit of a dangerous way of thinking. Because one, it's almost like a protection mechanism within yourself if you're not ready to peel back the layers and be introspective and kind of go to where you need to change and kind of build that leverage on yourself to change. But at the same time, it can kind of just keep you doing the continued behavior that at that point just kind of wants to almost like fuel itself and wants to kind of keep going. And I think sometimes as humans, we can be too arrogant, really, and almost we think we're more intelligent than we are. And I remember times where there was a part of my brain that was making noise, like, you've got a problem here. And then I suppose there was the addictive nature that was kind of pushing back to silence that. But there was also times where I generally sat with myself, and so it kind of made sense that I wasn't actually like a full addict because I wasn't really in any financial difficulty at that time, or, you know, I only went to the betting shop twice in the past week, and you can use kind of logical rationale. And I've said this before, and particularly with gambling addiction, which is my challenge, it's one of the only addictions that it actually makes sense to, or doesn't make sense if you're a compulsive addict, but it can logically make sense to continue that behavior. Because if you've had a really bad run of luck, law of averages and mathematical probabilities and calculations, that probably bad luck won't continue forever. So you've almost got kind of the rationale kind of going with it as well, which is just so destructive in a sense that it can just keep you from seeking a recovery path sooner. And I would encourage you, if you're watching this video and you do feel like you have a problematic relationship with anything, but in particularly gambling, you would class yourself as a compulsive gambler or an addict, the sooner you start on a recovery process, the better. Going back to that quote, addiction denied is recovery delayed. You're kind of robbing yourself of a new future self where you can thrive and get past the challenges as soon as you face up to it. There's the 12 steps of addiction, and I think the first one is, paraphrasing because I can't quite remember it, but is admitting that you are powerless over this alcohol, gambling. So that very first step is being honest with yourself and owning up to it. Because from there, everything can get better. Everything can get better once you've got that understanding, and acceptance, I suppose, is the key word. For me, I remember when I did that, it almost felt like a load had been lifted. And in some ways, your mind doesn't want you to go there to say it because it feels like you're crossing a threshold of how you might feel. But it's actually a bit of an illusion. And in my experience, it felt almost like kind of therapeutic to say it. And I almost then, this can sound weird, but almost like couldn't stop saying it after that. And not like anyone who I'd meet on the street, I'd run up and kind of lead with that. But once I'd kind of taken the handbrake off, I kind of felt like each time I said it, it was kind of more positively reinforcing. And look, a lot of shame can be attached to addiction. And that's a key reason why people don't often like to admit it. And again, it's such a shame because it robs them from that recovery process and going forward. But once you do, quite often I felt like I got a lot of respect from people because, you know, a lot of the guilt and shame was in my mind that was kind of building the angst and the anxiety and just wasn't really productive. And often, you know, it sounds quite callous to say, but people don't care about us, particularly strangers or acquaintances, anywhere, or people you're just meeting, anywhere near as much as we do. So there's almost like a nod of respect, if you will, that, oh, okay, loads of people have different challenges in life. That's yours. You've obviously accepted it. You're now going forward. Good luck to you. So that's the message that I kind of wanted to leave you with today. It's more of a kind of a mindset thing. And I get that it can be totally different. It can be very difficult rather. But acceptance is absolutely key. And that's what's going to kind of allow you to move forward fastest. And you know, life is short. You don't really want to have regrets per se. So if you feel like this is resonating with you, maybe now is the time to seek some help or look at some proactive recovery methods, which there are several out there. I'll do another video on different maybe resources that you can act and use that really are very helpful. And please share this video if it is someone that in your circle that you feel, you know, because often it's easier to see problems in other people more so than it is in yourself. So there might be a friend or loved one that you kind of know is struggling, that you think deep down maybe they know this, but they're just not quite at that level of acceptance yet. And, you know, you never know, watching this video might just help them with that. So please share and please support the channel in whichever way you can by liking, maybe commenting, sharing your experience of this if it resonates. And I'll talk to you in the next video very soon.